I would like now to invite Mrs. Marta Santos Pais, Special Representative of the Secretary General on Violence Against Children, to present the remarks contained in document A/HRC/19/64 and its addenda. You have 10 minutes for your presentation, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure for me to present before the Human Rights Council my third annual report, and I would like to start by thanking you all for your strong support to my mandate and to the protection of children from violence. The second year of my mandate has been crucial to rally firm support to address persisting challenges and to speed up global progress towards a world free from violence for all children. And over the past few months, important initiatives were promoted. Firstly, the promotion of global advocacy to raise awareness and to strengthen political action to consolidate the protection of children from violence. Secondly, as you have seen in the annex to my report, special emphasis was given to widening and consolidating further partnerships with regional organizations and political groupings to maximize efforts in support of national implementation developments. And third, a global survey on violence against children was launched to assess and accelerate progress in this very important agenda. Let me address this in greater detail. Support to the global campaign for the universal ratification of the optional protocols to the Convention on the Rights of the Child have remained a key dimension of my mandate. Joining efforts with United Nations partners and the Special Rapporteur on the sale of children, with regional organizations, member states, civil society organizations, we have achieved very important progress. As you may know, the protocol is today in force in 154 countries, and since the launch of the campaign, 17 countries have in fact adhered to this treaty, while many others are taking significant steps towards ratification, either through legislative reform or through the promotion of information campaigns, development of national plans, and the setup of coordinating national mechanisms. At present, only 39 countries have not yet been in a position to adhere to the protocol. But what it is very important to note is that amongst these, 23 have made formal commitments to the ratification of the protocol before the Universal Periodic Review of the Council, before the Committee on the Rights of the Child, before the Special Rapporteur or other human rights mechanisms. And most of these countries have in fact ratified other international standards that address the same areas covered by the protocol. Close to 50% are parties to the Palermo Protocol on trafficking in human beings, and more than 70% are parties to the ILO Convention on the worst forms of child labor. What I want to stress is therefore that there is a unique momentum to reach the goal of universal ratification, and I very much count on the support of the Council to achieve this goal very, very soon. Distinguished delegates, a key component of my advocacy agenda has been the organization of expert consultations on strategic topics of the agenda on the protection of children from violence. In the past year, 3 expert consultations were held on law reform, on violence in education, and on children in the juvenile justice system. And over the next few months, 3 other expert consultations will be organized, both on data and research on violence against children, on harmful practices, and on violence prevention in early childhood. Our consultation on violence against children in juvenile justice, held a month ago in Vienna in collaboration with the Office of the High Commissioner, UNODC, and the Austrian government, was particularly important in the lead-up to tomorrow's annual debate on the rights of the child, and it identified important risks and systemic weaknesses that in fact lead children to be exposed to violence, and it also identified strategic strategies to prevent and respond to this phenomenon, very especially by shifting away from a punitive approach and to a stronger investment in prevention. The expert consultation on law reform was also a very important contribution to achieve progress around the world. As you know, when the United Nations study on violence was finalized, 16 countries had an overall legal prohibition of all forms of violence against children. At present, this number has doubled, and we see in many countries important developments, including the inclusion in the constitution of a legal prohibition of all forms of violence. In many countries, legislation is being finalized, as is the case in Brazil and in the Philippines. In other cases, very detailed provisions have been adopted to address specific forms of violence or violence in very specific contexts. For example, in relation to violence in schools, Belize and Peru have adopted important pieces of legislation, and to address violence within the home, Pakistan very recently adopted an important piece of legislation on domestic violence. The expert meeting on law reform put forward several recommendations that you will find in my report, but I want to stress two of them. The first is that law reform is a key component of any effective child protection system. It is an ongoing process, and as a result, it cannot be resolved through isolated or fragmented interventions. It needs to be supported by advocacy, social mobilization, training of professionals, and guidance to interact with children. And the second recommendation is the fact that we need a clear, explicit prohibition in the law of all forms of violence against children, but this prohibition needs to be supported by detailed provisions in specific legislation to protect children at all moments and in all contexts from violence. Violence against school was another area covered by an expert consultation held in Oslo with the government of Norway, the Council of Europe, and my own office. The conclusions of these expert consultations are to be found in a publication that we launched yesterday and in which many of you participated here in the Palais. The report highlights two phases of education. Certainly the recognition that children are entitled to cultivate creative talents, to learn life skills, to grow with dignity and confidence, to internalize values of solidarity, of tolerance, and of non-violence, and to learn how to promote peaceful solutions of conflicts. But at the same time, our consultation and the publication also acknowledge the very high exposure of children to different forms of violence within the school system by teachers, staff, personnel, and also by their own peers. I am very confident that this report will help support developments at the national level to achieve progress in this area and to promote learning for all children in a safe and enriching environment. A consolidation of strategic partnerships with regional organizations and regional groupings has been a cornerstone of my work. This process of collaboration has been marked by the adoption of significant political commitments and declarations, as well as regional agendas to move forward this agenda, and it has been marked by the adoption at the regional level of important monitoring bodies to oversee progress. This publication from my office incorporates the different political declarations and agendas from all regions around the world, and it includes two recent developments. The Santo Domingo Declaration adopted by Central American countries, Mexico and Cuba, and also the framework of collaboration signed with the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children, held just a month ago in Manila. Very soon we will have two regional consultations in South Asia and in the Caribbean region, and in Mercosur a follow-up meeting will take place at the end of this month. I'm very confident that the Council will support these initiatives on violence against children. I also want to highlight the work we have launched to assess progress achieved with the global survey on violence against children. I am very happy to stress that the questionnaire sent to Member States has been addressed by more than 90 governments around the world, and I would like to encourage governments that have not yet submitted their contribution to do so. We would like to take account of the developments in your countries. We have also developed, in partnership with civil society partners, a child-friendly version of the global survey so that children and young people can contribute to this important assessment. And I have received very important contributions from all regions of the world. The outcomes of this survey will inform my annual report to the upcoming General Assembly session. And as you may guess, it will be very important to inform the work ahead. Although we are only starting the analysis of replies received, we are seeing an emerging picture. We see a picture where violence against children is becoming part of the national agenda, with increasing legislative developments, with information campaigns, policy interventions, and with a few important initiatives on data and research on violence against children. But we also see a picture that is very uneven, with insufficient efforts to promote cohesive and well-resourced national agendas on violence against children, with dispersed and often very reactive interventions to address incidents of violence, some pieces of legislation that remain fragmented, and insufficient investment in prevention and in particular in family support, in the capacity of professionals, and in creating safe and trusted mechanisms for children to complain and report incidents of violence. Overall, we don't have enough data on what is happening, on the magnitude and incidence of this phenomenon. So I believe there is a very strong need to pursue our efforts and rally behind a forward-looking agenda to sustain the momentum of the efforts we have been able to consolidate so far, and also to promote a paradigm shift in the way the children are protected from violence. So, distinguished delegates and dear friends, this year, next October, the General Assembly will review my mandate, including with regard to its funding. I believe that there is a very strong case for the continuation of the agenda on violence against children. The past 2 years have seen important progress, but it is progress that needs nurturing. We must make sure that these advancements take root and they are spread more evenly to cover every child, everywhere, and at all times. I very much look forward to continuing to work closely with you in moving this agenda forward. Many thanks.
Thank you very much, Madam, for your conciseness and the profoundness of your presentation. Thank you very much.